what I see is a man who is full of hate for Blair, absolutely jealous of that situation. But the two of them deserved each other as far as I was concerned, because Blair made two promises at that very dispatch box. And in those promises he said, he answered a question, will we have a referendum on Europe? And he said yes. And then across the other side on the opposition bench, his man got up and said, just to get my mind clear on this, even if every nation in Europe turns down the EU constitution, will we have a referendum? And he said yes. Then the election came, and every time somebody tried to talk about the corruption in the EU, it was turned down and said, look, that's for the referendum, we're going to talk about bread and butter, which people want to hear about. Fine, so they did that. Straight after the election, of course, we all know what happened. He welched on his undertaking at that dispatch box. There was no need to him to do that, but it was never his intention to give us that referendum. Now this is a democracy. It was supposed to be a democracy. And what they're doing is handing us into a dictatorship. As a matter of fact, they call the European Union post-democracy. Now, as Churchill said, it's not it's difficult to run a democracy. It's the best thing we have at the present moment. Dictatorships are unacceptable. The Commission is a dictatorship of elite people, very wealthy, bankers, who own the euro and own the dollar. The dollar is not a government thing. A lot of people don't know that. It's owned by bankers. Morgans, it's owned by Rockefeller, and also by Rothschild and one or two others. That's who owns the dollar. It's a contract with the American government. That's why it's run like it is. It's not a government thing. The Federal Reserve is not a government. And the government thing is, of course, is Fort Knox in America. And of course, in Britain here, we've sold all our gold reserves just about. We've hardly got anything less. We've got less gold reserves than Lebanon. He sold off, Gordon Brown sold, against advice, sold off half our gold reserves for $275. It's actually 60%, I've seen figures. $275 an ounce. $275, when the average is about $350. You let the market know he's coming with it, which is something you never do. And the other thing is, the price went up to $1,070. It cost us billions in lost money. That's one thing he lost, which of course he never mentions. The other thing is we pay 40 million a day to Europe, which is 14 billion a year, which is 196 billion over the 14 years I've got under review, 95% of which is missing. That's right, 95% is missing, according to the EU auditors. I'm not saying that. The auditors say that. They're the people who do the books. And if they can't tick it off and there's no receipts and there's nothing, there's no audit trail, they're not going to sign the books off, because they're responsible in terms of, their contract. So what we have got here is a hugely corrupt organization. And I've tried. I've written to my MP. I've phoned the Conservative Party, phoned the Liberal Party, and I got no replies at all. And then, of course, what have we got for all this money? Oh, by the way, just let me finish that particular point. It's not just 14 billion a year. It's more than, because he's given more now. I mean, the answer should have been, well, why do you need more money when 95% is missing? Or unaccounted for, as the auditors say. Why do you need more money? For goodness sake, get that right before we give you any more money. In fact, we'd like a whole lot back. Anyway, so that's it. But the thing is, there's 27 member states, and this amounts over trillions over the 14 years. So what's happened to all this money? What's happened to it? This is money that you and I are paying in. On top of this, they just had a fiscal study by a group that, a think tank group that's done an actual costing of what our costs are to be part of Europe, and it's costing us 118 billion a year. Now, our trade with Europe, he says, is 60%, which I doubt. But, these figures are fudged. But let's say it is 60%. We're trading in a deficit with Europe. That's what we are. We're trading in a deficit. So our supposed trade with the rest of the world is paying for that. That doesn't seem right. There needs to be something wrong with that one. I don't know what you think. There's something wrong with it. Yet we never hear any queries from Cameron, Clegg, or Brown, to Brown, about this 95% that's missing, that's been going on for years, and we've been writing to them about, and have been phoning Conservative Party, and 100,000 others have been doing the same thing, writing to them and to the Queen. What has happened to all this money? It's a lot of money that's missing. And of course a lot more money. Now if you really want to see what we are paying as what they call the imperial preferences for food, go and buy some fair trade food and compare the price of your tea with the tea we're buying. It's a fraction of the price, and other stuff you get through the fair trade, it's a lot cheaper. And even the meat, if you buy it from the wholesale, is a lot cheaper if you buy it from overseas. So it's not. There's a real problem, and they have frog marched us into this European Union, and they've handed over. I mean, you know, I just want to read something by Oliver Cromwell. And what he said was, he said, "It is high time for me to put an end to your sitting in this place, which you have dishonoured by your contempt of all virtue, and the contempt for our democracy, contempt for our way of life, contempt for Britain, contempt for everything, and defiled by your practice of every vice. You are a factious crew and enemies to all good government. You are a pack of mercenary wretches," and that's true, "and would, like Esau, sell your country for a mess of pottage, and like Judas betray your God for a few pieces of money. Is there a single virtue now remaining amongst you? Is there one vice you do not possess? You have no more religion than my horse." And you know, that's a very important thing. A godly man wouldn't have done these things. A godly man would never have lied. He'd rather cut his own hand off than lie like this to his people. But these men just seem to take it as read, and this is the right thing to do. In the past, men would resign because they'd lied and been caught out. These people just carry on as ever because they like the position or everything that goes with it. "Is there one vice you do not possess? You have no more religion than my horses," he said. Which of you have not bartered your conscience for bribes?" And that we know all about that. "You are grown intolerably odious to the whole nation. Isn't that true? We can't wait to get rid of them. You were deputed here by the people to get grievances redressed." And we have laws and we have ways. We have we've got habeas corpus, and we've got all things that our forefathers fought for, all being pushed aside. And now you find in many things, and let's take this thing about children, where you've got to go and get identified and everything checked. I mean, that is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. You are guilty till proven innocent. That's what's going on here now. Yet, right through their life, we've always been innocent till proven guilty in this country. But they're forcing us into this European way of thinking. And yourselves are gone, he says. And the other thing is the redress of grievances was people like me and a lot of other people who understood what was going on, writing and phoning, etc. We couldn't get any redress on this thing of handing over all these laws and all these powers to a European foreign grouping, which is dominated by 80% by Catholic nations, which most have been dictatorships, all their histories. They've got no idea of democracy. They don't know how to run it. And people like Hannan and Farage getting up and protesting suddenly made to look stupid and ignored. "You are grown intolerably odious," he says. So to take away that shining bauble there and lock up the doors. In the name of God, go. And that's what we should be saying to this Parliament, seeing that the Queen can't do it. We must do it as a nation. We must start getting rid of these people in voting. And I say, when the election comes, do the following: vote for UKIP or vote for independence, and vote for BNP if you have to, but vote for anybody but the Lib Lab Con. That's what you must do. And I wish you all the best. We as a nation have got to start thinking. Instead of doing it with our gut reaction, we must start thinking. I've been a Labour all my life. Well, maybe you don't need to be a Labour again. You don't need to be a Conservative like I was. You don't need to be a Liberal. You've got to start thinking. They all have the same policy on this European corruption.